Welcome back to another episode of the MX Endurance Podcast, where we look at everything that's happening in the world of endurance sports. My name is Tim Ford, and I'm joined by my good friend, the penultimate legend, the sexy shepherdess, and the sexiest voice in triathlon, James Bale. Jimbo, you're out of the mobile recording studio last week, and you're into, where are we? A roadside motel that you rent by the hour in somewhere in the UK. I think the first thing I said was like, "Have you got a dead body in the background there? What the hell is going on, mate? This is not a very aesthetically pleasing location for our video listeners or watchers, listeners, whatever you want to call them."
No. I tend to like to rotate locations nowadays, mate. It's not always guaranteed that you're going to be in the same place at the same time every single week, is it? So
you've just got the collection of the world's shittest Zoom backgrounds. Like you just pick like shitty hotel room, shitty car. Maybe that's what it is. It's actually you are in the same location, but you just keep picking these really awful backgrounds. Let's go with that story.
Let's go. Brown curtains. That'll do me. How are you, buddy? You're right? Yeah, I'm well. Well, I'm not well actually. I got struck down with a cold about a week and a half ago, as you know, and I just can't shake it off. It's like 2 years worth of COVID cold have come at once, you know. And
cold and COVID in the same sentence, mate. Or locking you down.
It's intense. So I'm full of cold. I'm not feeling very well. How are you, man? You all right?
I'm exhausted. I've been through the ringer this week. I think I put up a post in the MX Endurance. I had my first mid-training session vomit this week, and I've just come from the pool where I did a hypoxia limited breathing session. And man, I am roasted. Put a fork in me. I am done. But I am loving it. It's just good time to be a fan of triathlon, mate. There is so much happening. There's so much for us to talk about this week on the show, and it's all catching up with me, mate. It's making me so excited. I recorded the bonus episode with Chris this week, which is always a lot of fun. Gets me the opportunity to geek out more triathlon than I do with most of the time, because he is the ultimate triathlon geek. But speaking of triathlon geeks and Chris McCormack, this podcast is the official podcast of MX Endurance, the world's premier endurance sports community, created by him. Jimbo, you've been part of MX for a really, really, really long time. What's something that you like about MX Endurance?
Well, at the moment, mate, it's the feedback and the interaction that you get with the members, and specifically the stories you tell me about the messages and comments you get on all the posts. It's really good to see that level of interaction, and I always enjoy scrolling down through the Facebook page and seeing what people have got to say.
You know, the other thing, because as people may have heard us say, you can now find this podcast by searching MX Endurance on YouTube, where we do a video podcast, is to see some of the comments come through. One that came through one of my videos this week was that fat shaming is another form of white supremacy. I thought that was an interesting comment. Welcome to YouTube. But in all seriousness, on our interview we did with Mikkel and Gustav last week, there's some really great comments. So thank you for those people who were jumping on the YouTube channel. If you haven't already, I would encourage you, if you wonder what the sexiest voice in triathlon actually looks like, prepare to be underwhelmed, but you'll be able to find out on the video YouTube thing. But in all seriousness, so this podcast is now available on YouTube as a video podcast, as well as all podcast services. I should probably start saying that more, mate. So we because again, it's funny, you see how many, like, I know we have thousands and thousands of listeners on the podcast, so it's like, jump over and just give it a quick view, have a look. It'll be help to see that counter start rolling up. I'd like to see it.
Yeah, if you want to see the rotating backgrounds of James Bale, then join in, because different location every week at the moment, it seems.
Every single week. I'm hoping that your actual home location, we're going to improve that background so it's not just the limp jersey hanging behind you. We can do better than that.
I'm on the case. A
mural, man. I mean, I've got the fancy background lighting. I've got my bikes, everything.
I think a fountain. I think a fountain would do the job.
What if you got like a tasteful nude in the background of yourself? Like you're just laying there with like a bike strategically placed or something like that.
Cross a chaise longue.
You have the photo and your head sits right in the good part. So you're just blocking out your prize. Now, we want to attract people.
I'm not sure a tasteful nude as me has got a good part, to be honest, mate, if I'm honest.
What about then a photo of you in your white tri-suit? That's a tasteful nude. So we are off the rails straight away. For people who are like, what the hell is this podcast? We do talk about triathlon most of the time. We're going to get stuck right into the triathlon talk. And the first news article, I shouldn't laugh, it's actually a doozy. This is something that we spoke about a few weeks ago to do with the Dutch Federation, and the Dutch Federation's report has come out. Jimbo, you put this in, I'll go through it. But where did you get this article from? Do you remember? Was it that Try? Is it Try Today? Is that the website? It was something like that. I can't remember the exact.
I can tell you immediately.
Fantastic. Please do, because it's important that we.
Yeah, I will do. It's trytoday.com.
I thought it might have been. So, the Dutch Triathlon Federation's board resigns after research confirms malpractices at the National Training Centre. Now, because of the nature of this, I am going to go through the full article. I'd rather give you all the facts rather than paraphrase, or I want to make sure that everybody is basically up to date, because this is a messed up situation, and I have some thoughts about this, Jimbo. Spoiler alert.
Yeah, so do I.
It started with some athletes anonymously sharing their experiences about bullying, gossip, neglect, and exclusion with the Dutch triathlon news website 3athlon.nl, a story that concerns the malpractices with the selling of athletic stipends. What's a stipend? Do you know what that is?
I do not, but carry on reading, and in a second I'll tell you what a stipend is.
Thank you. This is why we work so well together. Followed, but while it remained most quiet at the Dutch National Triathlon Federation yesterday, the NTB announced that the board of 7 people has decided to resign. So far, that means that the NTB president, Rembert Groenman, and technical director, Audrey Burke, who have frequently been mentioned by athletes to have played a major role in malpractices at the National Training Centre, stay in their current positions. Summary of the research findings. The stories about bullying, gossip, neglect, and exclusion have been confirmed in a summary of the report by external research firm FIJBES. I'm not even going to try to pronounce that, which the NTB shared in a press release yesterday. Based on interviews with athletes, staff, and management, the Dutch report explains what the problem at the NTC are, and eventually they share 13 recommendations on how to improve. The issues concern, like previously mentioned, bullying, gossip, neglect, and exclusion of athletes, also within the Olympic selection, social dynamics in which certain signals are unnoticed, guidance on pedagogical, didactic, and group dynamics are limited according to the findings. There are big differences between athletes' personal experiences with the NTC. As a result of strong group formation, there is an appearance of conflict of interest mentioned in family relations with the staff, and athletes have a high dependency of the NTC and NTB. Finally, the report mentions malpractices from the past that have been investigated during the latest research that was performed, but they recommended that the NTB look further into this. Do you know what the word means before I keep going?
A stipend is a regular sum paid as a salary or expenses to an official. So basically, it's just corruption.
Okay, interesting. The 13 recommendations. After these findings, the 13 recommendations start with the advice to take action on short notice to improve social safety, plan additional evaluation based on these research outcomes, work on recognition and acknowledgement of problems, and organize meetings with athletes who haven't felt safe, improve guidance on group dynamics at the NTC, improve social dynamics within the Olympic selection and their staff by making use of an external mediator, improve didactic, pedagogical, and social competences among staff members of the top sport program, organize a safe platform for athletes to provide input and constructive criticism concerning the training program, arrange a confidential advisor on short notice who helps to recognize issues and make work of it, make sure it's clear how actions as a result of these recommendations are implemented, work on a better male to female balance within the coaching staff, involve the board in the process that follows after receiving this research, further investigate matters that have played a role in the past, and consider investigating the situation with the athletic stipends. In a statement, the NTB said they've hired Rita Van Driel as an independent advisor in the field of social safety. Van Driel will make work of all 13 recommendations that were made in the report. They also plan to investigate malpractices of the past on short notice. In the interest of top-level sports, the board makes room for a new board that is unencumbered by the past and can work on the future with new confidence and a fresh outlook. The former chairman of the board, Wim van Uyen, sorry if I've butchered that, mentioned, we have worked on a new plan of approach, which NTB president Rembert Groenman and the new board will further investigate and execute. Surprisingly, that means that the people who have really played a leading role in ignoring all of the above-mentioned malpractices over the past years thus far stay in office. And in the case of Groenman, they're even given the great responsibility of finally breaking the chain and improving the situation for Dutch triathletes. James Bale, straight to you.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big story, isn't it? It's a big story. It's a disappointing story. And in my mind, it's a bit of a disappointing outcome. I feel like they've gone through a box ticking exercise, and it looks like watching a large company put out a corporate social responsibility statement of all the things they're doing to improve their feedback in that realm. I don't see how we find ourselves in a position where all of this has come out. A lot of athletes have spoken up and anonymously or not anonymously, given their feedback to the board. The board have resigned. The board have put this report in place and resigned, but every single other person or official involved, like they say, that were part of ignoring these issues over the years, remain in place. So what changes, Tim Ford?
Not even people who've just ignored it. People who seem to have actually been directly involved in it.
Indeed.
That's what's so concerning. Now,
the enablers.
There's a TV show that I've recommended you watch, and it's called Succession, and it's like loosely based on News Corp and the Murdochs and all this sort of stuff. And it seems very much like something that happens in that show. Like, is like this idea that they've done this report. They're like, shit, there is a lot of really bad stuff happening here. Like, you can't read this report and go, yeah, no, that's fine. Everything's fine. No, things are bad. Bullying, corruption, like it's bad. Yeah, but these guys will go. See, we're taking steps. The people who've done it. Oh no, we'll fix it. You can trust us. You can trust us to fix it. That's wildly problematic to me. I read this and I was like, we've been quite engaged with this story. We've been following it. We've been waiting for this report to come out. We know things that we probably shouldn't say on the show about this situation. So to see it come out and be like this, I was like, wow, what a letdown to me. And I mean, one of the things, I don't want to name names, but I've even seen some athletes coming out and making comments like sports harden up around this. And it's like, how about no? How about we stop having that approach where sports hard and toughen up? Like, we've spoken a lot about this in the past, that there is that changing of the guard, but we're not just talking about sport being hard if they're talking about bullying, what's the word? Nepotism, like these actual problems that if any other situation, if this was a company or an actual organization, these would be incredibly problematic situations, and any workplace they wouldn't be accepted. So just
Indeed.
because it's a sport thing, why is it like, oh no, it's part of it's just part of the sport?
Yeah, I was very, very disappointed when I saw that particular response come out. I think it was ill-advised and misplaced. In terms of the board falling on their sword, it's all about where the power lies, isn't it? I mean, we are not involved in this dynamic on a day-to-day basis, so we got to wonder, where does the power lie? Who's pulling the strings, and who's decided, well, we'll just refresh the board, get rid of the board, make it look like we're doing something really dramatic, but in reality, the day-to-day coaching and the day-to-day issues that have been raised in this report and by the athletes themselves are still going to carry on, and I can see history repeating itself further down the road. I also don't understand why. If you're the board and you see these issues coming out, then you've got the power to make changes and really improve things instead of brushing it aside and carrying on. It's not like it's not even like we're seeing the Dutch Triathlon Federation having the greatest success within the sport, and they're just like, shh, carry on because it's all working. I mean, they're not at the top of the sport in terms of what they're putting out day to day. So, maybe changes are needed in order to give the athletes they have got the opportunity to become the very best in the sport.
Yeah, look, I think we've been quite down on this, and I think that I want to try to give it a slightly maybe optimistic view or opinion as well. Is they have said that, like, let's say that the people who are responsible, or the people that maybe I think should have moved on as a result of this, maybe they've not or thought they weren't going to, like, they would just get away with it. Now they're like, okay, no, we can't. And maybe this will shock a change in behavior. Maybe we'll, again, be optimistic. Maybe it will lead to change. Maybe having the new board come in who know what's happened and go, okay, no, we need to operate differently, could potentially make things better. I don't know. I certainly hope. But you hit the nail on the head. It's not like we're talking about like the most successful program in the world. It's like, it's like there's clearly problems going on in there. And again,
yeah. I mean, you never know.
I think the other thing as well,
the very, very longest benefit of the doubt we can give them is that they're refreshing the board, and the new board is going to come in and make changes.
The other thing I do want to say, though, is, and this is a problem I'm finding more and more in the sport of triathlon, is not enough people talk about these things. Like, this stuff is important. If we want this sport to continue to grow and become a real global sport, these sort of problems need to be brought into the light, and people need to be held to account. Like there needs to be like I reckon most people who were listening probably had never even heard of these issues until we spoke about it a few weeks. And maybe they'd forgotten. I don't know. I think it's important that more people talk about this stuff because this stuff matters. And we're seeing it happening more and more and more across the world at different organizations within the sport, that there are problems and that there are things that need to be addressed. There's something we're going to talk about later in the episode that I think kind of relates to do with Australia. But these things matter and they need to be spoken about and they need to be brought into the light and they need to be made, and then they need to hold people to account and they need to scrutinize these things to stop it from happening. I think that's really important too. So
I agree, because you're talking about health and well-being and safeguarding of young people as well. It's a situation where you've got a duty of care to really look after the people you're looking after and not just think, oh, it's a privileged position for you to be here and it's a competitive world, so suck it up.
I agree. Well, look, let's shake that off, mate. That got deep. Let's shake it off. Let's loosen up. Let's get onto something. Oh no, it's not good either. Jan Frodeno calls it a season. Kevin McKinnon at Triathlon Magazine Canada put this together, and he said, defending Ironman champion confirms he will be racing in St. George and Kona next year. Jan Frodeno has announced that he won't be racing Ironman South Africa on November 21st. The cold he picked up on his way to Ironman California continues to bother him, so he's decided that he's done racing for 2021. After getting a little better and getting stuck back into training, he's still not 100%. The 2019 Ironman World Champion sent a video posted from the fun fair with his kids. I've decided to call it a season. A little bit sad not to make it to South Africa. I really did want to have a crack at a good race there, but that's not the way sport sometimes works. It's time for an off season for me, then getting into the 2022 season. 2 World Championships, really looking forward to it. The good news for triathlon fans from this announcement is that Jan Frodeno, who turned 40 on August 18th, will still be racing next year. Jimbo.
I reckon he's got the same cold I've got, mate, because it is a bastard one. Good on him. Good on him. I think it's probably a good choice, isn't it? I mean, he's got a cold. He doesn't want to race. Doesn't want to make it worse. And also, he's just seen Gustav Iden put out that performance he put out last weekend, and probably wants to refocus a little bit and think, right, well, I've got some fucking work to do, haven't I?
We recorded our bonus episode with Chris this week. We spoke a lot about the after effects of Florida, and one of the things we spoke about was Jan. And again, I have no inside information. I do not know anything about anything, pretty much. But I'm actually genuinely curious if we'll see Jan race both races next year, like this says it is. I think what me and Chris spoke about a lot was probably, I think we can guarantee we'll see him in Kona. I think Kona's 100% lock for Jan Frodeno. I'm curious to see if he does St. George. I hope he does so much. I hope he goes and races that Bergen World Cup event that Mikkel said that he invited him to. I think that'd be fantastic. I just want to see Jan Frodeno race. But yeah, I didn't even realize he was considering racing South Africa. So not the year he wanted, not the couple of years he wanted. And yeah, let's get focused for next year. Let's he's people have short memories in this sport, and I find it very, very funny. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. The next thing, mate. Now, I've known about this for a few weeks. I just signed an NDA a few weeks ago when I had the first chat, and I thought Kevin McKinnon at Triathlon Magazine Canada did a very, very good job of summarizing this. And I'm sure you saw this, but there's a new product has been announced called Race Ranger, and it's designed to fix drafting in triathlon.
Yeah, man, they've just followed me on Instagram this morning. I was like, because there we go.
You're the sexiest voice in triathlon, mate. They need you to explain to the world of triathlon about this
and
stuff.
A shaker at the same time. Go ahead.
World Triathlon is backing some new technology from Race Ranger to try and help officials make drafting calls. A couple of former pro triathletes from New Zealand, James Elvery and Dylan McNeese, have come up with some new technology that's designed to take the guesswork out of draft marshalling. Their company, Race Ranger, has been backed by World Triathlon and was announced. The pair have been working on the project since 2014, with serious development beginning in 2017. So how does it work? Racers will have 2 electronic units on their bikes, one at the front and one on the rear. The rear unit has a light which serves up light signals to the rider behind, letting them know if they've entered the draft zone of the rider ahead of them. The front device measures the distance to the riders ahead, but can also show warning and penalty signals from the referees. Accurate to 10 centimeters over 30 meters, the Race Ranger system measures 10 times a second. The system tracks when athletes are breaking the rules and sends that information to officials through a tablet app. The app lets officials know which athletes are breaking the rules the most often, those who are bouncing in and out of draft zones, and those who are spending the most time inside a draft zone. The officials can then determine whether or not to give a penalty. This innovative application of cutting-edge technology will significantly reduce this pain point for non-drafting triathlon competitors around the world, World Triathlon said in a release today. Race Ranger will eliminate much of the subjectivity around the drafting rules, enhancing race day experiences for all athletes in those events. So basically, mate, the device sits on your bike, it has a sensor, and it's not like an actual. I had it explained to me. It's the same tech that goes into the Apple, the like Find My Apple device things you have.
Oh,
So
okay.
it's more to do with sensing rather than like it's not a laser or anything.
Oh,
James,
okay, so
I spoke with James.
it's not a laser then. I was picturing it as a laser that would, if you cut into that, it would be like beep.
No, it's not that. So it's like an actual. He explained it. It sounds very, very impressive. And then there's lights on the front. So if the officials give you a penalty, your thing will light up and you'll know you've been penalised. And also you'll know if you're in the draft zone because it'll go a certain colour of the bike behind, ahead of you. But the technology stuff is I think early days stuff. But I want to talk more about the implications of this. What do you think about this, and what do you think this will mean for triathlon?
I want to know whether it's focused towards pros only, whether it's focused also towards age groupers.
Age groupers.
If it's focused towards age groupers, I'm interested in how much it's going to cost, and I'm interested as to whether the age groupers are meant to bear the cost of that, and whether they will be required to.
Tell you all this.
Go ahead, Mr. Ford, because if it's a requirement to have one of these in a race and they're like $500 per pop, then I will ask some questions about it.
It would be like your timing chip. So at the race, when you register, you'd get your pack with your timing chip, and there'd be these sensors as well. So it's just part of the race experience. In fact, that from what I was told, the model would basically be that they eventually this would become part of the people who supply the race technology, or the timing technology would also supply this. It's got things as well, so that the penalty boxes would be automated. So that you've got a penalty, and then as you approach a penalty box, there'd be a screen that would say you have a penalty, and you go into the box, and it automatically detects you in the penalty box and starts the timer again, which is on a screen. And the only person you have there just make sure you're not taking your helmet off or taking a piss or litter or anything like that. But the thing that I thought was really cool is how they talk about being able to see who spends the most time drafting. So it's like literally you can see how long so they might have not actually broken the rules, but suddenly they've spent 10 minutes of their race inside that draft zone. That therefore, if somebody does get a bit close, they're going to be like, "Yeah, you're one that we should probably actually penalize." Like, I think it's actually really, really like it's a great. It fixes a problem. My only concern is
go ahead with your only concern.
Do the mass participation events care enough about the drafting that if there is an additional cost, will they want to bear it? Like, that's the only thing I can see about it, because I think this is a fantastic idea. I think we should all, as amateurs and professionals alike, get behind this thing, because it's going to make the sport fairer. But you look at races like Barcelona, Texas, the ones we always talk about. That's because they want to squeeze as many athletes onto course as they can to maximize their revenue. And if suddenly makes that impossible, like we've heard the numbers saying Kona, it's not physically possible for everybody not to draft because there's not enough course, or you hear these stories. That's the only challenge I can see. But I think this is a fantastic thing, and I hope this becomes something that continues to grow and becomes standard practice.
Yeah, you're right. It comes down to cost, and who has to bear that cost, and the race organisations' hunger for that solution that we just put in place. Because I've done enough age group races, where there've been packs of riders riding past me. I can't see many of the non-big series races taking something like this on. So it would be an Ironman, it would be Challenge, it would be those sort of outlaw sort of races. And that then comes down to cost, because if it is going to trickle down into the non sort of larger series races, it has to be something that is fairly easy and cheap to just add on to a race number. You could think... even.
Yeah, sorry.
No. I was going to go ahead. I was just going to say you could probably add it to the like they do on running when you do run races, and you've just got a little chip along the bottom of your race number belt thing. Anyway, carry on.
I think that the idea would be that it's just part of the entry fee, so you don't really even notice it. Like, it's not it could be like a couple of.
No, I'm not talking about the cost to the athlete. I'm talking about cost to the organisations. If the organisations are suddenly having to bear a huge amount of cost to implement this thing, then they're going to be like, well, I don't really give a shit about drafting that much.
One of the things James suggested to me is that maybe a good way for them to introduce it would be that it's almost like if you want to be eligible for Kona slots or for age group awards, you have to use the technology.
So it's like a
Like maybe
two-tier.
that's maybe. And I was like, yeah, I could. I mean, personally, I love this idea. I'd love to have this on my bike because I get the shits really badly when I'm busting a gut and you turn around, there's someone just fucking freewheeling on their hoods behind you, and you're like, mate, I got criticized a couple of weeks ago for swearing too much on this podcast. You would hate to hear me on the bike course if you're sitting on my wheel because I use words a lot worse than fuck when I'm on the bike course and someone's drafting me.
It is a very frustrating problem, and it would be good if someone came up with a solution that would just rid the sport of that issue. Then the issue becomes one of logistics for the race organisation to be able to supply races where drafting isn't a necessity, and it would be good to put that onus on them to say, look, this technology has come along, and if they could get an agreement with Ironman to say all of our races have to use this, then those individual franchise race organizations have to say, oh shit, all right, now I can't just have a field of red lights constantly blinking.
Yeah, I like that element, and I wonder, do you think that if it came a point, let's say again, let's hypothesize and say that Ironman or Challenge choose to go, yep, we 100% support this. We're going to have this technology. You know that if you race a challenge event, it's not possible to draft without getting penalized. And Ironman are like, we're not behind this. We don't care. We're Ironman. We just want as many people on course. We don't care. We're bigger than we are triathlon, whatever they want to say. Do you reckon that I think there would be a percentage of triathletes who'd go, I'm going to go race challenge races. Like, I don't want to, like, I think what I'm basically trying to say is the existence of this technology, suddenly it's not going to be very easy for brands to hide behind. They're going, oh, we're doing everything we can. No, you're not. Pay this money and get it fixed. Like, I think that's quite a good thing. Is it's like, if you want to fix this, here you go. Here's a solution for you. It becomes very clear. So I would encourage everybody, go to, you can find it literally Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, search it, check it out, get behind it, have a look. They've got lots of information there. You can see what the devices look like. They're quite small. I'll probably include a link in the show notes this week too to their website. So check it out, get behind it, because again, this is a good thing for the sport, making the sport clear. And again, even just for even the professional application alone, I think there's going to be a lot of pros that are going to be very, very excited about this piece of tech. So it's a good thing.
Yeah, man, because I actively avoid those races that are known as draft fests. You wouldn't find me going to race at Barcelona or anything like that. I just got no interest in being that annoyed for that amount of time on a bike. I would just be angry.
I get stressed. I get so stressed when there's so many people around me because, like, again, I'm sorry, age group listeners, but a lot of you don't know how to handle a bike very well, and I get very, very nervous. So yeah, I look at that footage from Barcelona. That's like my worst nightmare. Anyway, let's move on because this next article is another doozy. It's good, but it's bad. But I don't actually know the newspaper that it came of. Emma Carney, who we've spoken about a lot on recent shows, who's the one who's laying down the smack talk at triathlon, basically telling Triathlon Australia that they need to be reviewed. They sent the cease and desist. She shared this on Twitter this week, and it's an article from a newspaper, and it's by Steve Butler, but I don't know which newspaper, so I apologize for that. And the article is called "Switch Pays Off After Perth Ace Cast Aside," and it says, former Perth triathlete Kenji Nener has told of his heartbreak at being abandoned by Australian selectors before competing for Japan in Tokyo. Nener, who developed his craft with Western Australia's Triathlon Excellence Program, finished 14th in the race and beat all three of the Australian competitors. He told the West Australian yesterday of his pride in representing his mother Yuki's country, but his disappointment at how he was forced to switch allegiances from Australia. After finishing third in the 2015 Australian Elite Championship, he fractured his third metatarsal on his left foot and tore open his right foot after running on a rock during a European event. It left him unable to walk for 8 weeks. Coming back from my injury was tough, and I think Triathlon Australia knew it. Nina Pictured said, I got a call from Triathlon Australia 2 weeks before my European tour to say I had been taken off the high performance categorization, meaning that they would not cover expenses and, more importantly, would not consider me for any major events. He became so frustrated, upset, and angry with his fading Olympic dreams that he accepted the offer from Triathlon Japan. It meant he has now not seen his Perth-based family for 2 years because of the pandemic, but was heartened by his finish at the Games. I had no Japanese ability and little core understanding of the culture, but to me, that didn't matter because I was gifted another chance, the University of Western Australia Applied Mathematics Honours student said. I've gained a better understanding of my mother's heritage, a firm grasp of the Japanese language, achieved my Olympic dream, and better than that, proved to those who doubted that I might be a factor. Jimbo.
I like it as a heartwarming story for the outcome. And also fair play, getting a firm grip of the Japanese language in 2 years. I mean, that must be fairly tough going in itself. Going away for 2 years, not seeing your family because of the pandemic, settling into a different way of life, a different culture, a different approach to sport, presumably as well, and coming out with an outcome of racing the Olympics. Well done. I don't know enough about the triathlon. I know that there's been a lot of criticism of Triathlon Australia of late from Emma Carney. I don't know enough about this specific story to really know whether this is whether this story in itself is to Triathlon Australia's detriment, because athletes that you're going to focus on come and go, and your priorities change. So I don't know whether you've got a bit more understanding of that than I have.
No, I remember seeing him racing for Japan. I heard that he was an Australian, he grew up in Australia. And I was like, oh, why is he not racing for Australia? And the only reason I included it was because it was like, here's your answer. This is what happened. I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
That's a bit disappointing considering that he did better than every Australian in the race. Maybe we should have.
Well,
I don't know.
yeah, the Australia's got some work to do. It's
2032, baby.
As much as I like to rinse you guys, I do think you have a very important part to play in this sport and a history in this sport, and it would be good to see Australia as a powerhouse again.
Well, speaking of Australia, as a
just
powerhouse,
not that
mate,
much of a powerhouse. Just not that much of a powerhouse. Just all
not
right.
like the British team. Not like the British team at the moment. Not like the British females who are just fucking next level. Let's talk about Para Triathlon World Championships. I got this from Brad Culp at Triathlon Magazine, and I want to give Brad a special mention because he's one of the only people I found who gave this event any coverage. This is in his weekly weekend roundup that he does. And he starts with saying, all Jets Platt does is win. Abu Dhabi also hosted the Para Triathlon World Championship alongside the main event of whatever was the sprint race on the weekend, with a number of the medalists from Tokyo Paralympics taking part. Dutchman Jets Platt led start to finish in the PTWC category to add yet another title to his resume that includes 2 Paralympic golds. He has now gone 6 years without losing a race. The man with perhaps the most impressive arms on earth has now cemented his legacy as the greatest para-triathlete of all time, and it may be another 6 years before he's beaten. In the women's PTWC race, Australian Lauren Parker redeemed herself after losing gold in Tokyo in one of the most dramatic sprint finishes in triathlon history. There would be no sprint finish needed in Abu Dhabi as Parker won her second consecutive world title by nearly 4 minutes. And then I went to ABC, an Australian website, to get this bit more of a summary. It said, racing to her strengths, Parker opened up a commanding lead on the 750-meter swim and was never heated. She covered the swim leg in 11 minutes and 36 seconds, some 10 seconds faster than her Tokyo swim, before powering through the bike and run legs to claim victory in 1:05.24. Brazilian rising star Jessica Ferreira was 1:09.19, was second, with Spain's Tokyo bronze medalist Eva Maria Pedro 1:11.36. Parker joins Bill Chafee, Sally Pilbeam, Katie Kelly, and Emily Tapp as Australians to successfully defend a para-triathlon world/grand final crown, having won her first title in Rotterdam in 2019. Back to Brad's article, Spain's Susana Rodriguez and PTVI, PT6, and Alex Hanquin-Quant of France, PTS4, also added a world title to their respective Paralympic golds. And Great Britain's Dave Ellis, PTVI, I'm not sure, sorry, it's not 6, it's Vision, had his perfect comeback race after crashing out of the Tokyo Olympics. In all, 12 world championships were crowned.
When you said the man with the most impressive arms on earth, I thought you'd suddenly switch to talking about me, but you held course.
Give us a look. Show us the guns, mate. We're a video now. People can see what you're talking about.
It's true. I can. We're fucking suddenly held to account by a video camera.
I'll fix it in post. I'll get our video edited and put in like Arnold Schwarzenegger's voice.
Mate, Lauren Parker, what a performance after the mild disappointment in Tokyo. I mean, can we call a silver medal disappointing? I think you can when she was that close to getting gold in a sprint finish. To come back, to regather herself and come back as she did and take this victory and become world champion. Mate, hats off. I love it.
Oh man, Lauren Parker, I say this to everybody. I think she is we talk about Australian domination. She's probably Australia's most impressive triathletes. Like she went second at the Olympics, Paralympics. She won 70.3 World Championships in St George. In that race must have been horrific to do on in a wheelchair. You think about how hilly that bike course was. Like to actually have to wheelies. It staggers. It blows my mind that she did that and she won the world title. And now to come and do this as well. Like just what a performance. Lauren Parker is every Australian. I don't care. Every person listening to this podcast should just find out more about Lauren Parker. She has such an incredible story. I say this all the time. Like she's so fantastic. And Jets Platt, like that guy is just so dominant. Like he honestly has. Like he's never going to lose. Like he could do this forever. And he's amazing. So these guys deserve a lot of praise because they're just impressive athletes. And yeah, world titles. Congratulations to all the world champions.
Totally.
The next thing, Jimbo, I think people are probably waiting to hear about this one. There was a race in Florida over the weekend. We had one of the athletes on the show last week telling us that he was just there to learn, see how it goes. I think it went pretty well, mate. Now, you put this in.
He definitely did some learning, didn't he, old Mr. Iden?
I thought he did some teaching. If I'm honest, I don't think he was learning. I think he was schooling some people, to be honest. But we're obviously talking about Ironman Florida. Now, you put this in the doc, Jimbo. Do you want to go through this, or do you just?
I'll lead through the doc quickly, and then we'll have a chat around it because I know that we both followed the race closely. Gustav Iden romped to an impressive victory at Ironman Florida 2021 by coming out on top after a duel with Lionel Sanders at Panama City Beach on Saturday. Callan, Metzler, and Iden led the field into T1. Some 19 seconds back was Lionel Sanders in 6th. Callan led the way on the bike, but Iden was swiftly through T1 to be first out onto the bike course ahead of the chasers, who included Callan, Metzler, Worth, and Sanders. Callan built a lead into T2. Basically, after T2, it came down to Iden and Sanders running side by side. They dispatched Callan fairly swiftly, and then were running shoulder to shoulder for most of the run. We were both monitoring this closely, mate. A lot of people came back to us after the race and were like, Lionel Sanders really pushed Iden there, didn't he? He really stepped up to the plate. And if I'm honest, I don't think he did. I think it was Gustav Iden all the way sitting. Yeah, I know. I know. I heard myself flipping backwards.
I was sitting there just waiting for you to stop talking to absolutely roast you about saying Iden. I'm like, did you like? We've had the guy on the show like 1,000 times. We know him. And you're like, Iden? Is that how I say it? He literally did the introduction with his brother, Michael Eden, last week. And you're like, it's probably one of those moments where you're like, shit, I've forgotten how to say this now.
It was. Honestly, I was in my own head. I was like, it was coming out of my mouth and I was going, that doesn't sound right.
You took a gamble, mate, and you got it wrong. You fucked it, mate.
But then it came back to me. So for the second half of the run, Eden...
Hogenhaug, I understand. That's a hard name to pronounce. 4 letters, mate. IDEN.
He came alongside Sanders to share the work from the front, and the results still are very much in question at halfway through the race. With just under 10 miles remaining, Gustav injected a little extra pace to open up a 5-second gap to Sanders. It was the beginning of a significant move. Gustav extended his advantage over Sanders to 39 seconds at just over 18 miles. By 19 miles, the gap was more than 2 minutes. The field finished with Gustav Iden in 7:42.57 in first place, Lionel Sanders in second place in 7:48.50, and Robert Callan in third place in 8:08.13. So that was a 6-minute gap come the finish line.
Mate. So a few things about this race. Firstly, Gustav Iden. Wow. But so the one thing I know a lot of people spoke about is the swim. I think Gustav swam an hour for the swim. I saw Ian Farrell in the MX community shared a swim file from one of the pros at Ironman Florida. 4.5 kilometers, mate. 4.5 kilometer swim course. Like that's not a little mistake. That's a lot. Now I've heard there was currents and all sorts of things, but and I've also heard a lot of people saying that if you took the extra swim into account, he would have had the Ironman, the official Ironman world record, which I think he probably would have. But man, yeah, that run, 2:34, the second fastest run in history, and I think it was like 12 seconds slower than Matt Hansen's from Texas. He walked the finish line, mate. Like he was just casually strolling down the finish line, high fiving, kissing the babies. Yeah, mate, this was something. Hey, it really felt like we were watching something pretty special. I think this is a moment that
Yeah,
a lot of
not only did he walk the finish line, but in my opinion, he paced the first half of the race against Lionel Sanders, and
I
then
think so.
eased off into the distance. And watching the two contrasting run styles, it was remarkable because Gustav runs, he just runs like butter, doesn't he? And then, and I think put him in a situation where he's racing someone who is going faster than Lionel, he would have gone faster. And he could have matched someone faster than Lionel and pushed harder throughout that whole run. So I think a blistering run split, but one that wasn't the optimum run split we're going to see out of Gustav going forward.
Now, I want to preface this by saying I think that Lionel did incredibly. Like this is his fourth sub 8 hour race this year, 2:40 marathon for Lionel. He ran a 1:15 half at the start of this race, man. Like the pace was on. But I tend to agree with you. I think Gustav, like what he said last week about going there, to learn. Like I think that's what he did. Like I am surprised by you think. Let's even take it back to the bike. I'm surprised that like people let him just sort of sit in. Like I've had people saying, "Oh, he's a rat pack." Of course, like why wouldn't? That's called smart racing. Like he didn't need he didn't need to. He knows he's got that run. He's there. He doesn't really know what's to come. Like you're not going to go out on your first Ironman, or maybe you would if you're Chris McCormack, but you're not just going to go out and absolutely blast it like you would a 70.3. Like if you're not sure, I guess you probably would be going, let's see what everyone else is doing. And I guess I'll just go with the flow a bit. And then, yeah, he got on that run and I really whether it's true or not, I've heard all sorts of reports. I think you're exactly right. I think he was just like, let's Lionel set the pace. And I think Lionel probably went above what he probably, I mean, like I said, the fact that he lost all that time in the back, but he still ran a 2:40 and considering he went out so hard, like, incredible. Like Lionel Sanders, man, he continues to impress me. And that run, gutsy. Like really gutsy.
I picked Lionel for the win, and I'm glad I did because I think it was an incredible performance. But we're sitting here saying that Gustav said he went to learn, and what he did learn, and what he when he started that run, he intended to learn was what Lionel Sanders' maximum is, and now he's got that covered off. I think. Going forward in his head because he's like, right, I can run with him for a first half of a marathon. He's going to push himself to his limit, and then I'm just going to ease away into the distance. And that is what we saw. And so now 1-0 to Gustav for Lionel Sanders, and I think that might be. I mean, I know it's a big call, but I think that one race might be the race that says that Lionel Sanders never beats Gustav Iden.
Yeah, I think. I would. Yeah, I tend to agree with you. I really do. I'm very curious to see what Gustav's next steps up. We know that he still wants to do the Olympics and whether he's going to race in Georgia and Kona next year, we're not sure. I know that he was saying at the finish line he never wants to do another one again. But I think one of the other things I've seen a lot of people, it's because we didn't get to see him race Jan, which I genuinely like. I feel like we may never get to see, which is just heartbreaking. Is that he ran like almost 10 minutes faster than Jan did at the tri battle. And I know that Jan had the slip and he fucking biked like a beast. But speaking with Chris, like Jan's a 240, 240s runner. He always seems to run those 243s. Like sometimes I think he's like 240, which is because of the way he races. Like it's a very well balanced race. But you've suddenly got Gustav who could do potentially 10 minutes faster than him. And that's why I feel like everybody. I've been so surprised this week about how quickly everybody's just been like, that's it, Jan's done. Goodbye, Jan. That's it. It's all over. I'm not convinced, mate. I still think that it's so hard to hypothesize or guess this stuff because we don't get to see them shoulder to shoulder. That's why I want to see this race so much because as you said, like if Jan and they are together, the pace is going to be on and I genuinely think Jan can run better than that. We saw what he did, and I understand it's a long time ago in the 70.3 hours, but when he is put under pressure, he rises to the occasion, mate. Like he ran that 106 in 70.3. He made Javier Gomez walk for Christ's sake. Like I am really amazed, and I'm not trying to cause shit. I'm not trying to be argumentative, but I've genuinely been shocked at how quickly everybody's just been like, that's it, he's done. Jan Frodeno is we've seen the last of him. Gustav Iden is here. Good luck, Jan. I don't think it's that clear cut yet. I really don't. I think there is so much more. The way that the bike would have gone, Jan would have, like, the way Jan races would have been different. I just, yeah, I'm surprised by it, but I cannot deny that Gustav Iden, I mean, what am I saying? He did exactly what I thought he would do. Like, this result was not surprising to me at all. I watched it and I wasn't going, oh, I can't believe this. I watched it and went, yeah, this is what we expected. This is what they've said they're going to do. And I think me and you are probably very vocally, like, we believe the Norwegians. Like, when they say they're going to do stuff, we're like, yeah, I think they could probably do it.
Yeah, I mean,
And
I look at Gustav right now, and you're right. It's too early to write off another astounding performance from Jan Frodeno, and to see the race of the century from those two. You know, we could really see Jan raise his game and fire off that victory, and then, you know, because he is a lot older than Gustav, he is going to retire before Gustav. Now, whether or not that happens, I think from what I've seen so far of Gustav Iden, he is the future and the current of Ironman as well. You know, he is. We could be seeing a period of Ironman domination like we've never seen before, because he's taken to it so well.
the other thing as well is we've got Christian racing in another week? Like a week after this, we have Christian doing Cozumel.
Yeah.
And same thing, like, nobody's talking about Christian. And I understand, like, the good thing about Gustav now is he's got the wins on the board. He's done it well. There's no more will he not, like, oh, he needs to respect the distance. All those people have gone very, very quiet, I noticed. But, like, I'm still very I think we have to see what Christian does. And then again, as much as I want to see Jan and Gustav race, I want to see Gustav and Christian have a proper, uninterrupted, no mechanicals, no nothing, like we've seen them do in Bahrain a couple of times, but maybe at the Ironman distance. And I'd love to see it. And speaking with Mikkel since the race, he was like, flat course Christian, hilly course Gustav. And I'm like,
yeah, it doesn't surprise me.
God, I
need to find a nice hybrid for them to race on together.
St. George, mate. St. George Ironman could be a good one, because it's hilly, but it's not crazy hilly, I think. And God, it's just, again, I get so excited about these Norwegian boys because they are just, there's no fear. I mean, maybe there is a bit of, like, you hear a lot of stories about people saying your first Ironman is often your fastest, because you're oblivious to how much it's going to hurt. And then people they don't necessarily want to go to the well that deep the second time. But again, either Gustav is just the master of poker, like he is the best poker face in the world. He didn't look like he was doing it tough, mate. Like, he genuinely seemed fine the whole time. And every time I see him race, he looks fine.
Yeah,
like, he never seems to be under duress at any point.
If I could run like that, I'd lie. Gee, man,
damn it. I know.
Man,
230, like, one of my best friends who is probably the best runner I know. Like, he's run 70.3 races faster than all the pros before. Like, he's a good runner. I think we did a race where he ran the marathon, I did the half, and he came second overall in the marathon, and he ran a 2:34. And I'm like, Gustav did that after a 4.5K swim and riding 180 kilometers at 43K an hour. It's mind blowing. And it's that understanding that, like, yeah, it's 2:40 to win a marathon. Not anymore. It's sub 2:40 now. Sub 2:40. The bar has once again been lifted, and I can't wait to see. I heard Joe Skipper on his podcast this week saying that he's really motivated by that. And that's the attitude you want. You don't want these people to go, oh shit, I mean, you look at the top 10 in this race, mate. Some of these athletes in the top 10 were an hour behind Gustav. Hand in your pro card. Like, I understand Justin Metzler had a mechanical, incredibly gutsy before. He ran a 2:42, knowing that he wasn't going to, he was in the top 10, but he wasn't part of the race. Incredibly gutsy. But some of these guys, it's like, it's that thing that I always say. You've got the truly world-class athletes, and then you've got I'm a pro, but I'm not really. And having these guys just really highlights that gap. So
Skipper's going to step up to it, mate. You wait.
The Skippers. Yeah, I think that's what I mean. I like that Joe, like we almost talk about with with people being afraid of Jan. I think we're going to maybe see that Gustav and probably Christian will start to have that, or I think they probably already did a little bit. Whereas I love that Joe's like, no, I'm coming. Like, that's the attitude you want from athletes. We've seen it so many times where athletes just like, no, I can't do that. And that's like, no, come on, Joe.
On his best day, I couldn't beat him. Oh, well, fuck off then. All right.
Okay. But the other, mate, I'll tell you what, as much as I enjoyed this result, I have to be honest, I thought the men's race was actually particularly boring, to be honest. Like, I did not particularly enjoy apart from the spectacle of Gustav and what Lionel did, I found the actual race not very entertaining. Contrast that with the women's race, because what a race this was. Take me through it, Jimbo.
The swim and bike legs of the women's pro race at Ironman Florida 2021 had the feel of an individual time trial, but the run was all action. And when all was said and done, a sub 3-hour marathon from Heather Jackson was enough. Swimmer turned triathlete Rachel, how do I pronounce that? Zilinkas.
Zilinkas? Yeah, that's
Zilinkas was the first athlete back to Panama City Beach after the first lap of the swim, and given our leader stopped the clock at 29:01 at that point, conditions were certainly not going to give rise to any records in the water. In contrast to the men's pro event and its powerful leading group on the bike, the women continued the very solo nature of their race over the 2-lap, 180-kilometer bike course. De Vires finished the ride with 4:39.48 bike split and a lead of 2:16 over Simmons. Macaulay, Jackson and Moench all arrived in close order for 3rd, 4th and 5th, between 5:30 and 6:30 down. In carrying a drafting penalty, Wells would have to spend 5 minutes in the penalty tent and was unlikely to challenge the top 5. It was all action from the start of the run, with Simmons immediately cutting into the lead of De Vires. At the same time, however, Moench and Jackson, running side by side, were both running faster than the Swiss star. It was all compressing at the front of the race, and around 8 kilometres mark, Simmons took the lead from the World Triathlon long-distance champion. At the same time, Moench and Jackson were less than 3:30 behind and closing. Simmons was looking good on the run, but Jackson was running even quicker. It took 26 kilometers, but Jackson closed the gap to the 2019 70.3 World Championship bronze medalist and moved straight past into the lead. While Jackson had finally dropped the tough Moench, Skye was far from blowing up, and she too was trying to catch Simmons. Just a mile later, and the wheels were falling off big time for Simmons. She was sitting on the side of the road, allowing Moench to move into second place, perhaps sooner than expected. A very emotional Jackson crossed the line with a 2:59.28 marathon to add another Ironman victory to her CV, and a sub-9 hour at that, and also secures her start for the Ironman World Championships in October. Moench, already qualified for Kona, also went sub-9 via 3:03.06 marathon for second place. With 2 Kona slots available, that meant great news for third place, Laura Zimmerman, who completed the podium after starting the run back in 7th place. So the final results for this race were Heather Jackson in first place with 8:52.57, Skye Moench in second with 8:56.36, and Laura Zimmerman in third with 9:08.01. Excuse my inability to pronounce Zimmerman. I have a cold and I can't get the noise out of my nose.
What a race this was, mate. And I always say I'm happy to be proven wrong. I did not even consider Heather Jackson for the win here. I was so sure it was going to be Skye Moench. We know Heather's had a really rough year this year. Man, she was good. Like, just so good. Starting, what was she, like 10 minutes down or something? And to run through the way she did, far out, Brussels sprout. Like, it was so impressive. And I messaged Skye after the race. I was saying, again, just so gutsy. And I think I loved with Skye gave a bit of lip at the finish line where she's like, yeah, well, I can't win all the time. Like, I need to learn by being beaten sometimes. So it's important. And I was like, yeah, bravo, Skye. Like, that is just it's fantastic. But legitimately, this women's race was the standout event of the weekend. Like, I know that we've all been gushing over Gustav because, hey, he's done what he did. But this women's race was really, really, really something. The whole thing, like, Imogen Simmons going through the way she faded, like the drama of catching through, and then Heather and Skye racing shoulder to shoulder. I put out a tweet this week and I said, like, shoulder to shoulder Ironman racing is the best kind of Ironman racing. Like, it is when the sport is at its peak. And this was just a shining example of it. So this was just a joy to behold. Like, I loved watching this women's race unfold.
Totally. I mean, it comes down to many different players with many different abilities, all coming off the bike in different places, then running each other down. I love that. And like you say, shoulder to shoulder racing is where Ironman racing and long course racing is at its best. Because not only do you get the physical element, but you've got that mental battle at the same time. You get the chance to really enjoy races like Super League. It's short, sharp, and it's powerful, and it's exciting. And that's the excitement. Long course racing, the enjoyment comes from seeing a battle like that play out with 2 athletes running side shoulder to shoulder. That's where you see the best of long course racing, and that's what we saw here. And well done to Heather Jackson, who, we've conversed, and she's going to come on the podcast very soon for a chat.
I can't wait for that chat, actually. Again, just incredible. all the women were amazing. Jocelyn McCoy was great. I didn't realize Hannah Wells had the drafting penalty. I was wondering. I was very keen to see Hannah Wells. She's been so strong in Australia and New Zealand, so to see her go over to America, it's disappointing she had the drafting penalty. And then Imogen Simmons, obviously something went wrong because she is such a strong athlete, and I thought she'd be right up there. So, mate, that's Ironman. Anything's possible. There, I got the tattoo on mine. I didn't because I haven't done one. So.
What are the implications, Mr. Ford, on the PTO rankings following Ironman Florida?
Well, the PTO did send this through across to us. I'm going to go through it, and that's it. In his Ironman debut, Gustav Iden has solidified his world number one ranking. He scored 107.33 points, the second highest point total in full distance racing in 2021, just behind the stellar performance of Patrick Lange in Tulsa, where he scored 108.88 points. When you add all of his points together this year, he has an unassailable average of 109.62 points. That's like 7 points clear of Frodo. With Jan ending his season, Gustav is guaranteed to finish number one, scooping up the $100,000 annual bonus. Combined with his PTO prize from Daytona and his earnings at the Collins Cup, he's earned $280,000 in prize money from the PTO alone. Not bad.
I wonder how that works. Was he just send an invoice in, do you think, at the end of the year and be like, can I have my $100,000, please? Or is there a tie?
I'd be asking for a big novelty check. I'd be like, give me that big check. Oh, yeah, thank you very much. Walk into Haggis and Spiderbunk and be like, I'd like to deposit this check. And they're like, no, just...
I mean, I'm just interested in the payment terms. As boring a man as I am, payment terms intrigue me. I'm interested to know whether, does he have to sign up and guarantee he's going to be racing pro triathlon for another year and then he gets several payments throughout the next year? Or does he get one big bulk payment? I'm interested to know how they do it.
You'll have to find out. Sam,
yeah.
I know you're
invoicing, mate. I love a bit of invoicing. I do.
I know you do. I know you do. While Eden firmly established his credentials as the number one ranked athlete for the year, Lionel Sanders used an excellent performance at Florida to move up from the PTO ranked number 6 to number 3, just 1/10 of a point ahead of Sam Long. While his second place finish at Florida earned Sanders $9,000, moving up 3 spots in the rankings could bag him an additional $30,000, with the number 3 bonus being $80,000 compared to 6 being $50,000. However, Sanders is hardly guaranteed to stay at number 3, with Daniel Beckergod less than 0.3 of a point behind, being on the start line for Clash Daytona. On the women's side, it was good to see Heather Jackson perform well and win Ironman Florida. Her year has not been her normal standards, and she remains outside the PTO top 10 in number 14. One of the great stories in the race was Skye Moench. With another tremendous performance at Florida, Skye has moved up to PTO world number 7. Overall, she's raced an amazing 10 races this year, and nearly all have been top-notch performances. The big rankings mover at Ironman Florida was German Laura Zimmerman, whose strong performance boosted her up 30 spots from PTO number 62 to PTO 32. So there we go, mate. Not a bad little payday for Gustav Iden, confirming that number 1. Good for Lionel Sanders, potentially another 30 grand. Good times.
Yeah, man. I mean, I love to see it. I love to see we've got another source of income for these athletes, and it's real money. You know, you'd be able to say that Gustav Iden is going to be invoicing for £100,000 at the end of the year, $100,000, sorry, at the end of the year because of his ranking. Then we really start to see what the PTO is doing, how they're doing it, and how they're adding value to the sport for the athletes. In terms of sustainability, I'm interested to know how they're going to earn their money, how they're going to continue funding this. But we're going to see them launching their championship series soon, and hopefully it'll go from strength to strength, and jobs are good.
The only thing I am starting to see more and more comments about how the ranking system works and the AIT and the points and everything. And I do have to admit that this week, seeing, like, I don't know whether it just shows how impressive Gustav's form was, or the fact that, like, the swim was so awful, but they've still been able to earn so many points. Like, I just see more and more people being like, why is this system so complicated? I am curious to see whether, like, it's almost every post about rankings now. There's an overwhelming thing of like, we don't understand this, we don't like this. I'm curious to see if they just keep forging ahead with it, or if we are going to see changes to the ranking system, or the way athletes earn points next year. So again, it works, but I think it is maybe a bit more complicated than it needs to be for the average person to understand. So
yeah, I agree.
There was another race there were lots of races over the weekend. They were in Abu Dhabi. We saw a return to WTCS racing 2022 season, kicking off in 2021. We're not going to go through the whole breakdown, mate, because I think we both. Did you watch this? I don't know, actually.
Yeah, I watched the men's and the women's. I watched the men's live. I watched the women's on catch up.
Yeah, it was middle of the night for me for the women. So same thing. I watched the men's live and then watched the women's the next morning. But let's just have a chat around the races, mate, because I loved this. I mean, one thing I said to Chris when I recorded, I was like, he's ruined short course racing for me. Like, I found this telecast so boring compared to a Super League race. Like,
Yeah.
it was a rough watch at points. I was like, my God, this is just a series of stationary cameras that don't really show anything that exciting. But the actual performances were fantastic. Let's start with the women's, mate. Let's start about the incredible performances from Flora Duffy, the current world champion, the current gold medalist. And I think we're probably going to see her racing for many, many more years, despite her saying she was going to retire after Tokyo.
Yeah, absolutely. It was an interesting race the way it unfolded. I mean, Lucy Charles-Barclay was there, but she wasn't first out the water. She wasn't actually dictating terms in the swim at all. Watching Lucy, Jess Learmonth and Sophie Caldwell come out the water together with Lucy Charles down in sixth, and then that breakaway group on the bike, and it was Lucy Charles almost made it on, didn't she? Fighting. She was inches away from being on the back of that group, and then
I think she got on, and then she just lost it around that corner. Like that was one thing the broadcast showed was that one. Yeah, on that, I think that the fact that she then, after getting dropped from the lead group, managed to keep the chase group away from her completely solo, was such a gutsy performance. Like I think that was one of the. I'm going to talk about Flora and Georgia and stuff, but that was one thing I noticed with Lucy was just like, man, so much guts to just like doing that solo shows how powerful she is. And like I keep saying, I think that the fact that it's clearly just the technical skills of the cornering and stuff like that. And I think she had a little fumble I think she fell over where her shoe unclipped when she was trying to dismount. Those little technical skills are the things that I think she's going to be able to pick up quicker. I think if she spends a couple of weeks, maybe in summer she'll do some crit racing, she'll do some things to improve those technical handling skills. Because again, as Chris said, she didn't ride a bike 5 years ago, mate. Like she is so new to, like we forget about Lucy's like athletic youth, I suppose, in triathlon. Like she will get those things. But let's keep talking. Sorry, I just had that little.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. So then through T2, Learmonth was first out onto the run, but she had some serious talent behind her, and Flora Duffy took the reins, didn't she? Really, and gapped everyone over the final 2.5 kilometer run lap with a 6-second advantage, and then Georgia Taylor Brown started to pull it back.
Yeah.
Watching Georgia Taylor Brown really start to find her run form, she kind of builds into a run, doesn't she?
Yeah, big time. Definitely.
She's got this really flowing run form, and it just builds over time, and the speed just ramps up and up and up. And watching her almost catch onto the back of Duffy, and then Duffy surge again was a real insight into how talented they both are, really.
One of the things I noticed on the bike was it was good to see Taylor Knibb having a bit of a dig. Like she was the one I saw on the bike who seemed to actually be trying to pick up the pace and do something with that lead group. And Jess Learmonth was the one who responded. So I think they went into transition fairly similarly. But I was surprised how quickly Knibb dropped off on the run.
Yeah,
like she just sort of faded, which again surprised me because I think we all know that Taylor Knibb is such a red hot talent. And I wonder if it is going to be a case of the more technical courses like that maybe aren't going to be as beneficial to her compared to those ones like Edmonton where there's that big. And I mean, I know she won Yokohama, which is a technical course, but I think maybe those hillier courses are really going to suit her because she has that strength and she's got the strategy to attack at the right times, as we've heard. But mate, Flora Duffy, like the way she sort of surged, and then you're right, GTB ran back up, almost caught it, and then she surged again for the win. Just shows the class of that woman. And like it's funny because it's this almost like I don't want to stop seeing her race in it, but I also want to see her race long. Like it's like I can win, but I can't win a bit. But mate, she's not going anywhere. I hope she doesn't go anywhere. I think she's got make hay while the sun is shining. The Olympics are only 3 years away, and if she keeps racing this way, I think she could win another gold medal.
Totally. So the final podium in this race were Flora Duffy in 55.42, Georgia Taylor Brown in 55.54, and Sophie Caldwell in 56.12. What a race!
Sophie Caldwell too. We need to Sophie Caldwell is, man, again one of the few Brits that I actually like cheering for in short course, right? But like, now you guys what were you, like 5 of them in the top 10 or like something crazy, wasn't it? Like it's ridiculous. Just like a British
1,
whitewash.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in the top 10. So yeah, that's not bad going, eh?
The men's race, mate. Let's talk about the men's race because this was the one that I watched live, and bloody hell, I thought this was a good race too. This was something. Hey,
It really was. It was a big race for many reasons. It was the start of the 2022 season, the first race of that, so an opportunity to lay down a bit of a marker before the off season comes a calling. It was good to see Tyler Misterchuk back on course, and good to see
yes, it
him
was.
firing like he was and back up at the pointy end of things. He's coming back from Achilles injury, so
Torn Achilles, torn Achilles.
yeah, so he hasn't quite got the base of run fitness behind him. So when he faded a little bit towards the end of the run, it wasn't a surprise. But to finish in sixth place is a banging performance nonetheless. And polish that run form, mate, and he's right back up there. But aside from that, we saw a fantastic performance from Yellow Gaines, didn't we? Really.
Same thing. He took it. He's the guy who took the chance. I mean, I talked with Chris about Hayden. I've seen this happen a lot to Hayden recently, where he. I'm not sure. I don't. Again, it's very easy to put words in people's mouth, but I wonder whether Hayden has, like, does he back his run enough? Because he goes out like a bull at a gate, almost trying to break everybody. And we saw it happen in Jersey, where he did it to drop Vince, and then we saw it and attempted it in Malibu. And it never seems to quite pay off for him. I guess we saw it here because he went out. I thought, oh, here we go. If Hayden's on, and then he went backwards, mate. At the back end of that run, he was done. I understand Hayden had a litany of problems in the lead up to it. Again, I think
He
Hayden
came in with some issues. I mean, it wasn't the best run-in for the boy.
correct, and he's such a class athlete. Like, he's so much talent. But I've just been like, it's now that it's happened the 3 times, I am starting to go like, is there something? Like, is it a question of, is he back in it? I don't know. Again, it's easy to sit here and guess, and I could ask Hayden. But yeah, that was the sort of thing. But Yellow Gaines, mate. Like, again, you consider that the poor guy missed Tokyo, where he probably could have been a contender for a medal because of the COVID test, the positive COVID result. So for him to do this was great, and the way he did it too, where he really, like, he laid it down, took the bull by the horns, went. Vince tried to go with him, didn't happen, and he just ran away with it. Was seriously impressive racing. He's a talent, and it's true. Those Belgian athletes they just seem so happy. Like, you think about Martin Van Riel and Yellow Gaines, and they just look like good blokes. So,
Yeah,
Tyler, mate.
Yellow Gaines knew he needed to attack from a distance because Vince has got one of the best sprint finishes in the sport. So and he did. And watching Vince try to go with him, and then by the time he'd got to within that sprint distance, he didn't have the distance to pull him back. So excellent racing, and it was good to see Vince Louis so happy at the finish line. He's pleased, I think, to just be back up there. Second place is nothing to cry about, and it's good to see that result from the Frenchman, because I think there's a lot more to come from that man over the years.
I think I saw somewhere, and I don't know if I'm. He's doing the Indian Wells 70.3. Vince is doing it. That's going to be his. We're going to see him racing there in a few weeks, so that'll be exciting. Now, I just realised, Jimbo, I said that this was the start of the 2022 season. Was it, or was the German race that happened a few weeks ago the same? Was that Hamburg that happened the same weekend as the Super League race? Was that the first round of the?
I think this was the start of the 2022 season,
because I know that Summer Rappaport is now the number 1 ranked female because of her result at Hamburg and here. So I'm not sure. I'm sure people will be correcting me, but they've probably typed their tweet going, "You idiot!" It's actually so. I'm aware that I may or may not be right. that's the main thing. But again, I think if World Triathlon can really nail their broadcast, and I really wish they would just reach out to the team at Super League and say, help us to make this broadcast better. This form of racing is so good, and yeah,
I mean, it's not even just the broadcast, is it? It's because Super League's broadcast has its issues. It has its problems outside of following the racing. What WTCS need to reach out to Super League for help for is how to actively follow a race and make it look exciting. That strategic element where do we place cameras, how do we follow athletes, and how do we make racing look like racing, as opposed to just, like you say, static cameras following athletes. Super League's broadcast has its issues. It's not as smooth as some things might be, but they certainly know how to capture the action.
All in all, a good weekend of racing. Jimbo, what's next?
Welcome to the down low on the PTO. I didn't put much into it this week, mate. My throat's hurting. I wasn't feeling it. So that was a fairly mundane welcome to the down low on the PTO for me.
Do you want me to have a go? Maybe I can do it this week.
Yeah, go on then.
Welcome to the down low on the PTO.
Oh, mate, you sounded sneaky. So they've got fan vote awards up. They're going through these award things at the moment. We're looking for the most improved athlete. Has this vote started yet, or is it up there?
It has started. I don't know where it's at because at time of recording, I didn't actually check that. I did this at the last minute. We moved the rankings up and put this in because I wanted to talk about it. But it is the fact that they did the fan voted grittiest athlete last week, and this week they're doing the most improved athlete. And they asked for submissions. And I'll admit, I added a few names to the list, and it's good to see some of my names on this list. But I thought we'd go through it because there are some interesting choices on this list, and I'd like to again just have a bit of a chat around it. So this is the most improved. Now I'm not sure if it's this year or just in general, or I'm not exactly sure of the parameters, but I was curious to see. So the list we have in the first round is Taylor Knibb versus Mika Newt. In second round, it's Danielle Lewis versus Jeannie Metzler. Then we have Mickey Tagholt versus Leon Hu. Who's Leon? What's his last name, mate?
A Chevalier.
Then we have Ellie Solthouse and Emma Pallant-Brown, Sam Long, Justin Metzler, Ruth Astle, Skye Moench, Daniel Beckergod, Frederick Funk, Kat Matthews, and Magnus Ditlev. Legitimately, and this is not me throwing shade, I nearly commented on it, but I didn't, I would put Lionel Sanders in this list if it's this year. I think Lionel has just gone from strength to strength to strength this year. And I've been so impressed, not just his performances, but like his actual professionalism as a making good choices, getting a team around him, learning from his mistakes, taking challenges on being gritty. I really would have put Lionel in this list too, but I think I agree with you.
I agree with you. I think his improvements this year in his approach and his racing has been astounding. Looking at this list, I mean, in terms of most improved, I think Tyler Knibb's got to be up there, hasn't she? But she was pretty astounding anyway.
That's what I mean. Like this is how it's hard for me because I look at this, I'm like Taylor Knibb, but like she was already good. We just finally got to see her be good. Like it's not like she gone from being a crap athlete to suddenly incredible. She's always been incredible. We just haven't seen her race in the races. You know what I mean? It's not to me.
In terms of the last few months, and in terms of what we see from an athlete at big high profile races, I'm going to put Magnus Ditlev up there as a genuine contender for most improved, because we saw him have the year he's had, and then to string this period of 3 races together with 3 podiums, 2 victories, and a 3rd place is, I liked his approach and his gutsy sort of, you know what, the season's not over, game on.
Well, that's why I think if you look at most improved, and I think we saw Magnus, let's start at Challenge Daytona last year. He fastest bike split and then had a horrible run. Challenge Miami, rides really fast, struggles on the run. And we've seen this evolution where he's actually just gotten better and better and better to the point that his run isn't a weakness. Like that, to me, I'll admit I nominated Magnus for this. I put his name in the hat because that's exactly what I thought was the definition of most improved. He's a great athlete, but we've actually seen the evolution of him as
working
an athlete.
On his weaknesses, really
Correct.
Going away and working on that run and coming back where his run's a weapon now.
Like I look at like Kat Matthews again, one of our favorites. I don't think like Kat is just a great athlete. Like I don't see this. She hasn't gone from being like, oh, nobody knows about Kat Matthews. Kat Matthews is a world beater. And she's still a world beater. And that's not a criticism. Like she's just a great athlete. Like most of these athletes to me are just great athletes. Like Skye Moench, great athlete. Daniel Beckergod, great athlete. Like Emma Pallant-Brown, Ellie Solthouse, great athletes. Like I'm not sure if it is this year, because if you want to talk overall, it's a completely different discussion. But I'm choosing to look at it this year. But if I was purely going on this year, as far as to me, it's Magnus Ditlev. Like legitimately, that's my pick because
I agree with you, and I picked him before you, so I'm saying that you copied me.
Fair enough. I'll allow that. All right, Jimbo. Well, guess what? If you want to tell us that we're wrong, or you want to hear that bonus episode we recorded with Chris, or you want access to a whole bunch of other MX Endurance benefits, head to mxendurance.com/podcast, where you can sign up for one of our podcast memberships for as little as $3.40 a month. Gets you access to, we've now done 18 bonus episodes. Can you believe it? 18 of them are available there. You sign up, You get access to all of them. You can sign up for the 2-month free trial, download the 18 episodes, and never be seen again if you like. We think you'll stick around. It helps support the podcast. It's how we do things like the video podcast now. It's going to get us to some races next year as the world opens up. We've got some plans coming, Jimbo. We're excited. We're talking about events, things we're going to do. And again, it's a great way to how we allocate resources to the podcast. You get partner discounts, access to the community, access to our experts, and a great inclusive community. So if you're interested, head to mxendurance.com/podcast. We would appreciate it. It keeps Jimbo's background changing, and hopefully we can invest in some improvements to his home studio so that we can get something a little bit more impressive than a limp jersey hanging on the wall. But Jimbo, if people want to find out other stuff about MX Endurance, tell them what they need to do.
Well, thanks for listening. If you want to find out more about MX Endurance, head to mxendurance.com or search MX Endurance on Facebook or at MX Endurance on Twitter or Instagram. If you want to follow me, I am at bale.james85 on Instagram, or you can follow Tim at 2414 on Instagram. Jump onto iTunes, give the show a review, do it in the podcast app, and it really helps us out. If you like what we're doing, tell a friend, help us grow the podcast. If you got any suggestions, guests, or comments or criticisms, send an email to podcast@mxendurance.com.
Don't worry, we get the criticisms. We read them. We send them to each other. We have a chuckle. Jimbo, a pleasure as always. I hope you're feeling better.
Cheers, buddy.
I think it's funny that last week we spoke about needing more podcast members, and then your video fucked up. A shining example of why we need more podcasts.
Yeah, that would.
But until next week, James Bale, a pleasure as always. Talk to you later.
Cheerio.